name's Amjad Bashir, and um, I'm here with Sheikh Ahmed Jamil from iSyllabus. And today we're going to talk about, mashallah, something that's been, something that we've always quite been inquisitive about, and that's the origins and destinations. And the Sheikh is going to be running a course on this in the next few weeks, starting on the 4th of June, a weekly course that's going to be a couple of hours. And it's going to finish on the 25th of June, and it will be an online course. And the Sheikh will talk about the different stages that we go through in our existence. So, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. How are you doing?
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. How are you doing, Amjad?
Alhamdulillah, good. Sheikh, tell us a little bit about this course, because I know you've broken it down into different stages. So let's start off with, what are the different stages of our existence?
So, I mean, there's a classical book that was written by a scholar called Imam Haddad called Lives of Man, in which he kind of went through the 5 stages of existence. So I'm following a similar kind of format to that, but I've obviously added stuff in, I've taken stuff out. So, I mean, what I remember when the first time I read that book or studied it, what struck me, just to put my volume down a little.
And for those of you, before the Sheikh does that, just a reminder that the Sheikh is going to be teaching an online course called Origins and Destinations. And this is what we're talking about today and what's going to be in that course. So Sheikh, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine, yeah. I think it might be a bit low. I think it was maybe your side, the volume or something.
I'll try to.
I think it should be fine now. Like sometimes when you put the earphones in, it's better. So I remember the first time I studied that book, what struck me was I'd never come across this concept of a world before this world. So this idea that this is not the, like you think that birth is the beginning, isn't it? But it's actually not. It's not the actual beginning. You think it's the beginning, but it's not the beginning. The beginning actually occurred before this world. So we existed, I existed, you existed, your parents, your children, everyone you can think of in this world that you've met, we've actually already been existing, but not as physical bodies, but as spirits. So that really always struck me that that's not the beginning of my journey. Like my journey, your journey, everyone's journey began before we even came into this world. And then I got interested in what happened in that realm. The first thing is that we were actually there for a very long time. We've been in that realm longer than we've been in this realm, this world, this earthly world. And then what struck me, the second thing, was that this is actually the shortest out of all the stages. So you have the first stage, which is the spirit world. And then you come into this world. And when you're a fetus, the hadith says that the angel brings the spirit. So the angel brings the spirit. Spirit means the spirit is already existing. I existed, you existed. Our spirit was brought by the angel and it's put into the fetus. And that's the first time that the body and the spirit actually mix. They actually become one. And in this world, we're continuing until, as you know, when you die, the spirit comes out of the body. When death happens, the angel of death takes the spirit out of the body. So what struck me was that this world is actually the shortest out of all the stages of my journey. This is the shortest of all of them. And sometimes we think, this idea that the world is the be and end all, and nothing can be further from the truth. It's not at all. It's actually very short. And then we transition into another phase of our existence, which is in the grave, where our parents are, our grandparents are, all the human beings that have come before us are in that realm right now. Since the beginning of time, since the first death, everyone's been in that kind of intermediate realm, and there is a type of existence, a type of life that is going on there. And then we get a snippet of it in the Seerah when the Prophet ﷺ goes to the Mi'raj. As you know, he goes to Jerusalem. He meets all the prophets. Who is he meeting? He's meeting their spirits, right? It's not because they've all passed away from this world. Even Isa alayhi salam, although he's in his body, he was lifted. But anyway, they're not in this world. They're from another realm, isn't it? So he then leads them in prayer in Masjid al-Aqsa. And then he goes on up to the heavens. So he's exposed to that realm. The Prophet's given an insight into that realm that none of us will ever really get a chance to see. So that shows you there's something else going on in that realm. And then when he comes back to the earth, he experiences all these events, which when you read it, it seems to have taken place over a long period of time. But when he comes back, his bed is still warm. So in earthly time, I don't want to get into time travel, but you get ideas with films and stuff like how that could be possible. But time in that realm is different. Experience in that realm is different. And then he comes back to this world, and it's only been a few moments, you could say, but all this stuff has happened. You have this other world, right? The intermediate realm in the grave happening. And then we came out of Ramadan, and obviously in Ramadan, one of the things we do is we read a lot of Quran. And if you reflect as you read the Quran, you'll find that a lot of the Quran focuses on the Day of Judgment. It focuses on the next life. It keeps telling us the delusion of this world, that it's temporary, it's not everlasting, the real existence next life, and it gives you an idea of what's going to happen in that next life. If you ever read the descriptions of the Day of Judgment, it's very graphic. And then obviously there's going to be you're going to be judged. I mean, the fact that if you look at Surah Fatiha, which we read every single day, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, praise be to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, right? The most merciful, most gracious, Maliki Yawmiddin, the owner or the master of the Day of Judgment. So the third verse, straight away, we're actually reading this every single day, that I'm going to meet God, and I'm going to speak to God, and I'm going to be held accountable for the life I led. And so then what happens, you want to know what happens on that day, all the different events that are going to happen. And then obviously if you're successful, inshallah, we all pray and hope that that's the case, we go to paradise. But if not, we can equally potentially go to hellfire, and that's a reality. And because it's a reality and it might happen, it's prudent and it's very intelligent for us to know what is it that potentially could happen to me. And that can either be for a short period of time or a very long period of time. As you know, every believer will eventually come out. And if you die in a state of disbelief, it's for forever. So what are the descriptions that we've been told about hell? What are the descriptions we've been told about paradise? It's it makes a lot of sense that if you're going to a place, right? If you go on holiday, I know you go to Dubai, right? Like a lot of people do. Are you going to Dubai, right? You're going to the first time you go to Dubai, you're going to look at what's the currency there, what's the climate there, where am I staying, what's available, what's not available, any perceived difficulties I could have, so these are things that you would want to know, isn't it? Before you get there. So any place that you're going to be visiting, that's for like a couple of weeks, right? But if you were told, right, listen, Amjad, you're going to be living in this place and you're not going to come back. You're just going one way, that's it. You're never going to come back. You're going to be there for absolutely ever, until the rest of your life. I mean, that's only a few years, isn't it? If you're told you're going to be there for the next 30, 40, 50 years, you want to know everything you want to know everything you can possibly know about that place, so you can prepare yourself as much as possible, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so when God is telling us that, listen, this is forever, eternity is never going to end, it's going to go on and on and on, not 1,000 years, not 2,000 years, not 3,000 years, It's going to go on and on and on. And we know we're only on this earth for, 60 years, 70 years. The Prophet said the average age of the ummah is from 60 to 70, right? So it's not that long, but what's coming is going to be forever. Then shouldn't we actually take a bit of time out and just make ourselves aware of what is actually going to happen? It's not like it might happen. It possibly will happen. It is definitely going to happen. It is definitely going to happen. Every single person will die. Every single person will face God. So how's that all going to play out? So it's almost like you want to prep yourself, and there's no point in trying to hide from the fact, because for many people, death can be a scary thing. They don't want to think about it. But by not thinking about it, it's not going to make it not happen. By not thinking about it and ignoring it, it doesn't mean it will not happen. It's still going to happen. Whether you ignore it, you don't ignore it. So you're much better off knowing exactly what you're in store for, rather than just pretending it won't happen, and then you're going to get a nasty shock, which we, seek refuge in.
Jazakallah, Sheikh, a lot of information there, mashallah. And what's fascinating is you're taking it right from the beginning, from the point of when the spirit is going to be, when it was created, all the way to your final abode. And it's interesting, Sheikh, you talk about this world, and quite often many of us kind of see this world as, a long-lasting sort of world where we kind of put so much effort and focus into it that we seem to be disillusioned that this is going to be the majority of our time.
Yeah, I mean, and this is why because of our nature, because the way we are and the way God's created us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows our nature, knows we need reminding constantly. In fact, the Quran itself, one of the names is a reminder. That's why there's so much emphasis in the Quran to keep going on about this life. Like, do not get deluded. Do not get deluded by this life. Do not let it lead you astray. Do not let it make you kind of, take your eye off the ball. You want to, I think there's a bit of feedback there from your side. I can hear a bit of feedback there. I think you can put the volume down or something. Yeah. Something. Yeah. So, what was I saying there?
Sorry, you were talking about, obviously the world is a bit deluded by it.
Yeah. So that's why God keeps telling us in the Quran that this world, hayatud dunya, right? Dunya in itself, the actual word, means lowly, something which is lowly. So it's even God is reminding us, look, this is a lowly place. Do not get, keep your eye on the ball. Remain focused. Do not get derailed, because, like you said, it's very easy for people to just keep building this life, isn't it? So they keep investing, looking for business opportunities, and it's not that we shouldn't do that or don't do that, but it's to understand that it will not be forever. If you're in a house, then unless it's a new build, if you're in a house, like in an old house, then think of who was there before you and who was there before that person. Or sometimes you go to these old country houses in the countryside, and they're beautiful, and it's some mansion, and it was built by some person 300-400 years ago, and he would have come out and would have had all this land, but that person's gone, and then the next person's got it, and then the next person's got it, and then the National Trust takes over, makes it into a museum. I mean, all of those things are for us to reflect, isn't it? That people came before us, and people have passed on. And so it's always keeping that perspective of what this life really is. There's a Turkish drama, which I think is really good. It's called Yunus Emre, and it's a journey of this man, his spiritual journey. And it's actually, like in Pakistan, Imran Khan encouraged people to watch Ertugrul, and then it was dubbed into Urdu. He also did the same thing with Yunus Emre, and it's been dubbed into Urdu, so you can actually watch it in Urdu. And remember, there's a scene in there where his sheikh, he's called into a dispute, a land dispute. As you know, when it comes to inheritance, people are always fighting, isn't it? It's not something new. And so there's two brothers. One is saying, look, okay, the land belongs to the other guy, the other brother, but I've been looking after it for the last 20 years. He went traveling, he went here, there, everywhere, and I, made that land flourish, and now he just wants to take it back. Like, where's all the effort I put in to look after it? So anyway, the Sheikh's trying to get them to agree. They're kind of, the other guy's saying, no, it's my land. So the Sheikh actually says something really interesting. He says to the man who wants the land, he goes, whose land was this before you? And he says, it was my father's. And he goes, and whose was it before his? And he goes, it was his father's. And he goes, and whose was it before his? And he goes, his father's. And he says, and whose land will it be after yours? He goes, my son's. And he goes, and after him? He goes, probably my son's son. So he said, are you really the owner of that land? You're just somebody that's holding on to it for a short period of time and then going to pass it on to the next person, right? And I thought that example was really beautiful, that, sometimes, so again, it's in like an illusion in it. I own this, I own that. Or you think you've achieved these things, but when Allah says in the Quran, mimma razaqnakum, from what we have given you, what we have provided for you. So that's reminding us that, okay, you may have all this sustenance and wealth and things, but it's because God enabled it. It came from God. And so don't be under this illusion that you're the owner and you're going to keep it and you're going to take it with you.
Okay, Sheikh, let's start from the beginning, the origins. Quite often, sometimes you'll meet people and you have this feeling that you know that person, but you've never met them. And there's that connection that happens. And even related to that, when people get married, quite often people will talk about soulmates. So tell us a little bit about that. Why does that happen? Is that happening because of what happened before?
Yeah, so this is something that I'll be talking about in the course in a bit more detail, but in essence, very quickly, we in that realm, there's a hadith that says that the souls are like conscripted soldiers, and so basically there was what it seems to indicate is that there was some type of order. It wasn't disorderly. It also seems to suggest that, and also it goes on to say that those who knew one another get along, and those who did not know one another do not get along. So what some of the scholars say is that that could be an explanation, because we already existed and we were already spirits. This is not our first experience of existence in this world. And so if you were in close proximity to another soul or another spirit, right? So say in that realm, you were in close proximity to another spirit, say your wife, right? Then when you meet that person, you're not meeting them for the first time. Your bodily, yes, you're meeting the other person for the first time, physically, but your spirit inside of you and that person's spirit inside of them, there's a connection that happens which predates this world. So that was that.
SubhanAllah.
Yeah, so that's why that connection, that's why they say a soul connection or a spirit connection. There is truth to that reality because you've already had a connection before. And so when you meet that person for the first time in this world, it's like, I know you, you know me. And that's why you just get on very quickly. Whereas other people who maybe have good character and they're good people, decent people, but sometimes you just can't get along with them. You just there's something you just do not click, and other people you do click with.
I mean, that's the first stage, the spirit world. You're going to inshallah cover in great detail. The second stage is the world, this world here, and in one of your videos, you talked about how that's broken down in different stages as well.
Yeah. So this world, again, scholars talk about the different phases, even in this world. So obviously there's the their stage in the phase in the womb, and then you come into this world, and then there's what's called the childhood phase, and they say that's roughly from the time you come to this world till about the age of 15, around about the age of puberty, actually. So that's, and we know that you're not accountable in that age group, and you're just kind of getting to grips with the world and so forth. That's kind of setting you up for life, that stage. And you know, we know from child psychology that your personality is formed in those early years and so on. And then from puberty, around about the age of 15 till about 34, 35, mid 30s, is what's called shabab, right? Shab, youth. So that's your young years. This is when you're full of energy, very optimistic, sometimes a bit inexperienced with life. You can be a bit black and white, naivety possibly there, but you know, this is where you can really make a lot out of yourself, especially physically. You have the physical strength and so on, and then that leads you, you know, you have some experiences, you probably get married and maybe have a child or two. Then you go into the ages of maturity. The maturity ages is from about 35 to 50, some say from 40 to 50. This is where you've seen enough of the world, you've made some mistakes, you've learned, you've got a few things out your system, and this is not your peak, you could say, of your life. This is where you're at the top of your game, and there's no surprise that the Prophet ﷺ got revelation at the age of 40, which is in this kind of phase. When you get to 50, between 50 and 70 is like seniority. Now you're an elder, basically, of the community, like yourself, right? Although you're still in the early stages of that, but you know, you're officially an elder, and you deserve, you know, that respect. You've got some white hairs there, and you know, and so we look at basically what are the different hadith, what are the different verses of Quran that talk about these different phases. What do they tell us? So, for example, about the white hair, it said that, you know, somebody with white hair, you should respect them. It'll be a light on the day of judgment for that person. And, you know, so the Prophet said, don't pluck those hairs because there'll be a light for you in the day of judgment, so on.
Sorry, Sheikh, you're talking about the actual, the hair being white. That will be a light on the day of judgment.
It'll be like a light
shown to people of older age.
Yeah, so the grey hair and white hair, so the hadith says don't pluck them. Like, you know, some people like try to get away from the fact that they've got it. They said don't pluck them because they will be a light. There'll be a light on the day of judgment. Also, the fact that one narration also says that you'll get like a good deed for each hair and so forth. So in other words, it's a positive thing for you, for everyone. And so that's that kind of age of, now you've kind of seen, you know, a lot of life. You can kind of pass on a lot of experience, and also you're going towards the end now, and so there's a bit more seriousness now, a seriousness about your life. You're not so distracted about frivolous things, and you know, you really want to get your life in order. And these are, you know, people go and Hajj and these kind of things in this stage very often. And then if you live long enough, you after the age of 70, you've had a long enough life now, and then it's the age of frailty. So this is where you're going really rapidly now. There's a rapid physical decline in your health, as you know, dementia, all of these things. It actually says in the Quran, you know, that age where you start to you start to forget. It's almost saying that you forget. You basically, things that you knew, you do not know anymore. So it's almost like indicating that idea of forgetfulness and dementia. And so you're kind of going towards weakness as a stage of weakness, and sometimes people become childlike in that stage, and then obviously that culminates in death. So that's the kind of cycle of the human being in this world.
So that's the second stage, but the third stage, which is about barzakh. Tell us a little bit more about what you're going to cover, because obviously many of us have had loved ones that pass away, and we know that one of the first places that the soul goes is into Barzakh. So what is Barzakh, and what are you going to be talking about?
So the third stage is basically like where everybody that's passed away is, and so we know that people have a type of existence in that realm. I mean, they're either successful or unsuccessful. If they're successful, they're in pleasure. If they're unsuccessful, they're in torment. And so I'll look in the course into things like, well, what is happening in that realm? What actually goes on? Do people visit one another, for example? Can you visit one another? Do they know when you come to the graveyard? Do they perceive? What can we do for the deceased that will benefit them? And even things like, is there any evidence to suggest they know what is going on? Like, does your father know what you're up to? Does my father know what I'm up to? Is there any evidence to suggest that they would have knowledge of that, or don't they have knowledge of that? So I want to basically look at all those type of things, and then that obviously finishes with when the trumpet is blown. So there's an angel that's given the one job of blowing the trumpet, and that will be the end of the world. So at the end of time, when and we've been, as you know, Sheikh Rizwan done a whole course in the signs of the end of time,
but
all
Sheikh,
the different signs.
Before you go on to the Day of Judgment, I mean, within this course, are you also going to cover? Obviously, you're going to cover Barzakh, and you're going to talk about timings. What does that mean? Does it relate to our kind of linear timing? How does time pass? And also, in terms of what happens in the grave,
yes,
up until that Day of Judgment, or the events leading up to that.
Yeah, so I'll be looking at all of those things. So from the time of death until the time that you're actually buried, and then from burial, the questioning in the grave, what happens in the grave, and then what kind of state you're in, and then what things are going on in that realm. We'll basically be looking at all of those the main kind of themes of what's because the thing is, you won't know everything that's happening, because we can only go on what evidence we have, what we know for sure, and then we'll I mean, for example, the fact that bodies do decay in that in the graves, apart from some bodies, or like the Prophet's bodies don't decay, but the spirit will still certainly exist. Whether the body decays or not, the spirit still exists, just like the spirit existed before this world. It existed in this world, and then it exists in the next world as well. And that's what's actually experiencing the bliss or the torment. It's not possibly the body, because the body might have decayed, but it's the spirit. And then obviously, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala finishes this world, ends this world, then the trumpet will be blown again, and everyone will come out of their graves. So we'll actually all come out of our graves, reformed with our bodies, our physical bodies, and then we're kind of pushed to what's called the gathering plane. We're all going to get gathered, and then the next thing is the Day of Judgment that happens.
And I guess with people that have had loved ones passed away, knowing about this will give them great comfort, that especially hopefully that their loved ones are in a better place.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what obviously for certain, because we don't have that insight, but we have good hope. But the good thing is that we can do things for the deceased. It's not a lost cause. So if, for example, they maybe had missed prayers or missed fasts, we can do something about that. I'll talk about that. And also, if they've not done Hajj, you can perform Hajj in their behalf. The different acts that you can do, that people they've left behind, that can do, which can then benefit the deceased, and then whether the deceased know about that or don't know about that, and so on.
So stage 4 is about Judgment Day. So tell us a little bit about what you're going to talk about, and what are the key highlights of that particular day?
So a day judgment is going to be the most important day of our entire existence from the beginning to the end. This is the most important, significant day in our lives. This will determine our eternity. So what happens on that day is now going to determine where we're going for forever and ever. The first thing is that people are gathered, and there's almost like a wait. So first of all, we're made to wait, and the wait in itself is agonizing, and it's going to run for a long period of time. So much so it gets to the point where people can't take it anymore, and then they're going to go to the different prophets to intercede for them to begin the proceedings. Once the proceedings get underway, then there's a series of events. The probably most significant one for us is that the Prophet said, each one of us will speak to God without any translator. So basically, it will be you brought in the presence of God, no translator, no intermediary. It's just you and God, and basically your entire life is going to be on display from the beginning to the end. And maybe the things that didn't make sense to us in this world, that we thought were maybe calamities, or maybe we thought were injustices, or maybe we thought there were negative events. What will happen is you will get like a full view of the actual reality, because you can only see one particular aspect, isn't it? We can only see it through a worldly kind of a spectrum, but you will see it from every angle at that point, and that's when you will start to realize the wisdom, that you'll see things and completely differently. You'll be like, oh my God, all right, is that what really was going on? And things that you may think you were doing maybe for the right reasons, but the things which was really going on in your heart, was that really sincere? Was it not sincere? All of that gets exposed. It's quite a scary thought to think, that being exposed like that, it's like, if somebody exposed you, like, people get exposed how they feel, but if you get exposed for every single tiny minute detail, so that kind of almost feeling of shame in front of God when everything's laid out like that. And then
because when you were talking about this in your video trailer, honestly, when you mentioned that your entire life is going to be exposed, and you would have that conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that was a very scary moment. Suddenly, there's no hiding, everything's going to be out there.
Exactly. So this is the thing, that in this world that we live in, we have so many, there's a lot of falseness, there's a lot of fake. It's not just fake news, isn't it? But I'll give you a very simple example, right? We all do this, right? We all do this, and it's it's a common thing. You see someone in the street, and in your mind you think, oh God, right? Oh, I hope I don't have to speak to that person. And then in your mind, you're going through all the options. Shall I get in my car? Shall I cross the road? Shall I kid on? I'm on the phone. Shall I do this? Shall I turn around? And then all of a sudden, oh hi, and you say, oh hi, how you doing? Long time no see. Yeah, how's things? Yeah. I was thinking about you the other day, and I was just thinking I've not seen you for ages, and you have this very false conversation, because in your mind you don't want to be there. It's all niceties on the surface, and the other person says, oh, subhanallah, man, that person's really nice. See, all this is what I think of, like all the fakery that we got away with in this world. In the next world, it's just going to get all exposed, and you're going to realize that was fake, because in reality, I didn't mean anything I said. I was just saying those words because it seemed appropriate. I didn't want to come across as I hate you or I don't like you, but I was masking my reality. And this is the thing, we often mask ourselves, and what we really are thinking is not how we're acting, you see. And so all that stuff's going to come out. It's all going to come out in the next life. And we won't be able to say, well, no, I was being nice, because God will say, no, but look, there's your thoughts. And if you were to see it, well, yeah, you're like, well, okay, yes, I was thinking that. So you're going to have to acknowledge. You have to acknowledge everything, all your wrongdoings. You have to acknowledge them. You can't hide anymore. It's, in this world, people can't see our thoughts. People can't see our intentions. God's going to expose all of that. Your own limbs, will speak against you. Your mouth, your tongue. If you try and lie, your tongue will say, no, that's not what you were saying. You see, so even our own bodies will turn against. So, that is going to happen, and all of us, it's going to happen, and we're going to face God, and we really need to be getting ready for that. You get ready for interviews, but that's like the biggest interview of your life, the most critical, and the way you prep for the most critical interview in your life, and that's what we've got. This is this world that we've got, isn't it, to prepare for that ultimate meeting with God, which is going to happen. And then after that, depending on how well you've done or not well you've done, whether the interview went well or the interview went very badly, then your actions get weighed on scales, the mizan. So they put on the scales, and if your good deeds outweigh your bad deeds, you're successful. If your bad deeds outweigh your good deeds, you're not successful. And then by that point, everyone knows, you basically know if you're where you're going, you've been successful or not. And then there's the Hawd of the Prophet ﷺ. This is like a lake. We all know the Surah Kawthar. Inna Atayna al-Kawthar, one of the shortest ones we memorize as kids. So the Kawthar is a river in paradise, and we'll talk about the descriptions of that. And at the bottom of that is like the water accumulates, so it's like a lake, and that's where we will meet the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he'll give the people from his ummah to drink from that water, and whoever drinks from it, the hadith says, will never feel thirst again. And then you have this final stage, which all of us have to get through. Another quite scary thought, which is you have to cross a bridge, the Sirat, and this bridge is the bridge you have to cross to get into paradise. But below this bridge is hell, right? So hellfire is below the bridge, and you have to cross over this bridge to get to safety, to get to paradise. And this is where you will cross it in accordance to the level of your deeds. Some will go very fast, some will go very slow, some will be crawling. And as that's happening, if you can imagine, there'll be like hooks coming out of the fire trying to catch you. It's like a computer game, isn't it? You trying to knock you down. And some people, unfortunately, will fall into hellfire. And so you get across the bridge, and then inshallah, that's the point where you enter into paradise. So what we'll do is, once we finish those events, we want to look at what are the kind of descriptions we know from the Quran Sunnah about hell. What are the descriptions that we know from the Quran Sunnah about paradise? What do we know that from the limited knowledge we have, so we can have a better idea of what's going to be happening there.
Mashallah, it sounds really fascinating, the course. So tell us a little bit more about the course. Is it in person? Is it online? Will it be recorded?
So the course will begin on Saturday, the 4th of June, and we'll do 2 sessions, 11 o'clock in the morning. We'll have, each session will have a break in between. So we do about 25 minutes, take a break for 5-10 minutes, and another 25 minutes, then we take a longer break, a second session. And we will do that for 3 weeks. If you can't attend on the Saturday, it's not a problem. As soon as the lesson's over, it'll be available as a recording. And even if you watch it live, you can watch it again. You can watch the recording as many times as you want. And then after the 3 weeks, we'll cover all the material. We do have notes which are available, will be available on the website. If you wish to get physical notes, you can order it through Amazon and get a physical copy. And then the last Saturday, we'll have a live Q&A. So you'll be able to ask whatever questions you've had throughout the course in that session. And then you'll have like 90 days access to that to the material for it. So you can go over it as many times as you want, inshallah.
If people are interested to attend the course, how do they go about it? How do they register or enroll?
They just go to our website, www.isyllabus.org, and they should be able to register there from there, inshallah.
And mashallah, I believe it's £39, which is, mashallah, it's very good considering that you've got 4 weeks with the Sheikh. It works out to be less than £10 a week, alhamdulillah. But any final advice to the people watching, Sheikh?
Final advice would be just that I think it's very important to learn about this material. The reason it's important is because we're not talking about a different, somebody's life story or like a different subject matter, which is interesting, but it's not really affecting you. This actually affects you. This is something that it's the way I think of it is it's your story. It's the story of your life from the beginning to the end. And as much as understanding you can get about your own existence, that can only be of benefit to you, inshallah.
Inshallah. I mean, honestly, hearing you talk about this, we had a chat offline, but alhamdulillah, I think there's many benefits that you can take from this course that you can apply even in this dunya. The whole concept about that familiarity with people that you feel that you know, this whole concept about how do you deal with people that loved ones that have been passed away, and that kind of reassurance that, mashallah, hopefully you're hoping that they're going to be, inshallah, in a good place. So, Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Thank you very much. So, just to recap, the course starts on Saturday, the 4th of June at 11 o'clock till 1:30 p.m. The second week, and it's on every week on a Saturday, up until the last week, which will be Saturday, the 25th of June, which will be a Q&A session. And if you want to find out more information, go to the iSyllabus website, isyllabus.org.uk, and also you can go to Facebook. Sorry, iSyllabus.org, or you can go to the iSyllabus Facebook page or the Instagram page, and mashallah, do join us. And Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you, Amjad. Assalamu alaikum.